What's good, tribe? You know? Welcome to another video, man. This won't be a long one. So today we'll talk about Lesson 8 in my Become a Better Father program. Lesson 8 is family traditions, right? So one of the things that a lot of men, and I myself included, one of the things that I didn't realize I needed was traditions. When you have traditions in your family, one of the things that I understood, it sets the tone for your family, right? So what are traditions and why they're important? Give you an example of one, and we all can know one, right? We all know one, right? Some of us are old enough to remember where we went to, our grandma's house. And every Sunday we went to grandma's house. Grandma had dinner. Grandma had people over. We played cards. People stayed there for, 8, 9, 10 hours, well into the morning. And that was a tradition that we did every year for years. And what it did was, so the question is, what are traditions and why do they matter? And why they matter is because that particular tradition then instilled in us a sense of family, a sense of camaraderie. It wasn't just we hung out and kind of just hung out. We hung out at grandma's house, which number one was top tier, right? Because grandma already didn't have people over her house. Number two, when you hung out at grandma's house, there was a required attitude, a required behavior that came along with going to grandma's house, right? And number three, with that family, with that required attitude and behavior, you then were able to deal with people or your family a little differently. I'm not allowed to yell at my cousin at grandma's house. However, I can't play with my cousin, and because I'm at grandma's house, if I get in an argument with my cousin, I have to come up with a solution. And so these traditions, on the surface, it was just family connecting with family, but on a much deeper level, instituting and building on these traditions then gave every family member a purpose within the family. It allowed them to recognize they were part of something much larger than themselves, and that who they were mattered, right? It wasn't just we went to Big Mama house and Big Mama was it. No, we were all family. We all mattered, and what we did and what we experienced, all that meant something. So we're gonna go through lesson 8, setting family values, in my Become a Better Father program. If you want the program, the first module to my program is 100% free. It's in the description box. All I require is your name, email address, download and it's yours. If you want the entire program, that is also in the description box. That is going to cost you $97. But at the very least, if you don't want the entire program, but you want the first module and you want to go over what we're studying here, what we're reading, you can, right? You don't have to buy it. So, lesson 8, setting family values. So, I want to unlock something first. I want you to understand something, gentlemen. If you don't set the values for your family, the world will. And that is the thing that we don't want to take place. We don't want the world, and most men, you should not want the world to tell your children how they should and should not be as human beings. Your framework, the thing you teach your children, the framework that they have from you is the tradition. Well, my father said, within that framework, there was a set of laws. My rule was, as it relates to the house, I had one rule as it relates to food. You can eat as much as you want, but you cannot, under any circumstance, throw away food. You cannot. And if they did, they weren't allowed to eat. You're only allowed to eat. There was only like 3 or 4 things they were allowed to eat, right? And because I was so strenuous on them, my children would go, you know what? I can eat whatever I want. Like, they're going to throw away nothing. My son would get a sandwich, and if he felt like come back for another sandwich, he'd come back for another sandwich, right? Now, I get it. You don't want to get up sometime and go get the sandwich. But the idea is, when you set the framework for your family, the world then doesn't have a say-so, because you are setting the framework. You're setting the tradition for your family, right? I didn't grow up in a household where there was traditions. My mother was an addict. My father wasn't around. So we didn't have family traditions. Our family tradition was we had to survive. We were on purely survive mode. And we weren't trying to build or create family traditions. And that was a problem. Because with the tradition of the family comes an identity. Your child recognizes where their place is in the family. Thereby, it establishes an identity for the child itself. My granddaughter is a great example of this, right? She's learning that there is a hierarchy within our family, right? And within a hierarchy, she has a place. Now, her place isn't as high as anyone else's because she's new to the family. However, she does have a place within the family. And it's understanding that the child says, okay, so I'm not just some child, I am their child. I'm not just, some granddaughter, I am their granddaughter. And I'm not just some X, Y, and Z, I'm the nugget. That's the name that I give her, right? And so, just so y'all know, I'm reading from my notes. So one thing that I started to do was, I started recognizing that I didn't have family values or traditions. I knew that to build a strong family, that's what you needed. I used to watch a show called Richie Rich. And Richie Rich, even though they were extremely wealthy, there was a rule that was Richie Rich wasn't allowed to just spend money unless there was a purpose behind it. So he would go around doing like things for everybody. Because they had like an unlimited amount of money. Probably not. But according to the cartoon, that's what they did. So Richie Rich would, a family would be losing their house. And he would have to figure out how to actually help them not lose their house without spending all his dad's money, without his dad knowing. And so the show taught you that, I was going somewhere with that, man. Give me a second. That's where I was going with that. So what the value was, or the rule was, that Richie Rich learned was that even though his father had a bunch of money, he still had to be responsible with it. He still had to make sure that he just didn't like give it away, that he actually had to, do some good with his money. And so learning or establishing the tradition becomes part of the issue, right? Especially as men, we don't, one of the things I struggle with is how do I then implement these traditions? I get it. I should have traditions for my family. I should have a rule that they follow. There should be these things so that way my children know how to operate, not only in the home, but when they leave the house. I'm old enough. Yeah, I'm 48 years old. I will be 48 next month. And I'm old enough to remember that my mom said, we leave this house, you act like you don't lost your goddamn mind, I'm going to put my foot off your ass. Excuse me. That was my mom's favorite line. But that was a tradition. Whenever we went somewhere, I knew for a fact that if I didn't fall within my mom's rules, she was going to put her foot, now, metaphorically speaking, of course, but, it was going to be an issue. And so, how do we then establish that tradition and values without seeming like complete assholes? And that's where creating the traditions and allowing our children to partake in them makes it a little easier. So one thing I did was I started small, right? So I started with family dinner, right? The one thing I didn't like was that we were always in different rooms doing different things throughout the week. My wife and I worked 12, 13-hour days, 6-7 days a week. So when I would have 3 or 4 days off, I was either in my room or in my office trying to build my business, or I was just in front of the TV. My son was off doing his thing, my daughter was off, with her friends, and my wife was on the computer just having her fun, right? We ain't got to work, we want to relax. And I didn't like that. I didn't like that we were always so distant with each other. And so one of the things I implemented was family dinner. Every Sunday we have family dinner. Every Sunday. I don't give a damn what you doing, we have family dinner. Now, unless it's something that we had to be doing, then we had to go do it. But you want to go to your friend's house, family dinner first, then you go to your friend's house. And what I would do is, I would compromise with my children. I would say, okay, family dinner Sunday. Yeah, I know. Okay, how about this? How about we have family dinner early? That way you can still have family dinner and go to your friend's house. Because I wanted to instill in them that tradition was important, because that's a time for us to connect. And having that and going a day or two without that, it's okay. It wasn't. Not for me. I want them to understand that family is important. Even though you may have other things in the world, family was important. Another thing I did was we would have, outside of family dinner, we would have family meetings. So if we didn't have family dinners, come bedtime, it was family meeting, right? We did that twice a week just to check with everybody. Hey, everything good? You have any, and a lot of times, especially nowadays, parents don't really do this because our assumption is, the assumption is of younger parents is that my child is good. They hadn't said nothing to me, so I'm just thinking they're good. It's when we check in, right? So one of the traditions that I implemented was a check-in, right? And my children were young enough where, they didn't really like that. I don't give a damn. I don't care what you do and don't like. It's time for you to check in. So I tell my son, I say, son, it's check-in time. And it was check-in. It was twice a week at the exact same time, every single week. And I forget day we had it on. It was like in the middle of the week, but it was on that day at that time, every week, always. And I'll say, son, check-in time. Got about 20 minutes, right? And if he wasn't there in 20 minutes, I went and cut his game off. And I gave him enough time. I would normally go in there an hour ahead of time and tell him. But the idea is that not just that I'm being a authoritarian, but the idea is that we check in with each other and we establish with our children what's going on in our life. And even as adults, as parents, we know that our problems are adult problems and not our children's problems. But you need to know where we are as a family. Financially, we're sitting good. There's nothing major we need to going on. I don't want y'all to be concerned with nothing else. If all of a sudden the lights go off, we did pay it late, so there may be an issue, but don't worry about it. We got it. And so if there's any concern that they had, we will put that to rest early, so that way they didn't go around just, like my mom and dad. No, they already knew what was happening in the family. Let me read on. And lastly, one of the things I implemented was during our family check-in, be honest. When we have a family check-in, no matter what's going on, we are to be honest with each other, no matter what. So if it was something really that you really had an issue with, let's say I told my son, I called him an asshole. He had a real problem with that. At the family meeting, he was allowed to say, hey, you called me an asshole this time, and I didn't like that. Well, why didn't you like it? Well, I was doing X, Y, and Z. You didn't understand. Okay, son, I'm sorry. The check-in wasn't just a time for us to go, hi, everybody. It was actually trying to check in and make sure that we were honest in our check-in, that we're being real with each other, and that we're allowing our children to grow and develop within that framework, right? Now, this is what I want y'all to do. As you learn, or when I start to go over these lessons again, this is lesson number 8. At some point, I will read this lesson again. What I want y'all to do is, gentlemen, before I leave, I want you to write down 3 to 5 values or traditions that you want to pass on to your children, right? And it could be anything, honesty, faith, resilience, discipline, whatever it is for you. I want you to write that down. I want you to write them down, and I want you to live by them. Meaning, if you want, right now, you may be a father like, man, my son used to lie a lot, right? So one of the things I made sure of is I never lied to him. Even though he would lie to me often, I would never lie to him. If I couldn't do a thing, I wouldn't say I could and then just lie. Or if I was busy, and I'd say, well, I'll see if I can get to it. I was just honest with him. Because I knew for a fact he liked to lie. And so when he would lie to me, I would tell him, son, am I lying to you? No. Have I been truthful with you? Yes. Am I always truthful with you? Yes. And what that does is I'm passing on, the value of honesty, in that my dad's been honest with me. I should be honest with my dad. My daughter, right? My daughter, especially being a girl, right? life was a little more difficult for women. If she had an issue or problem, something she was dealing with, she understood that dad was a safe space. So whenever she told me something, I would tell my, if it was something that I couldn't, I wasn't really comfortable with knowing just myself, I would tell my wife. But if it was something simple, I didn't tell nobody. And I would let her know, baby, if you told dad something, did dad ever tell anybody? No, because I can trust you. Exactly. And so what I want you to do is I want y'all to write down 3 to 5 values you want to pass on your children. And I want y'all to start living from those values. I want y'all to start being that value you want to see in your children. You want to be more disciplined? Then be disciplined. And here's the thing, gentlemen. No one's asking you to be perfect. I'm not saying you need to be perfect when passing on tradition to your children. What I'm saying is, if you want to be disciplined, say you're going to get up every day at 9. Well, I don't really like 9 o'clock. What's a good time for you? I like getting up at 7. Say, get up at 7. Get up at 7 and get up at 7 every single day, right? Or I go to work and I get up. When I went to work for about 5 to 10 years straight when I was working at this company, I got up every day at 5 a.m. every single day for 10 years. My children could tell you, oh, he got up, like I'd have to be to work till like 9 o'clock. And I would get up at 5 every morning because that was part of my discipline. Included in that discipline was writing my book, right? And creating my programs. And so my son would come in my room in the morning, about 5, 6 in the morning when I'm up, just to give me a hug and a kiss. And he'll say, Dad, you working on your stuff? Yeah, I am, son. And I passed that on to him through my actions, because children learn, 90% of what they learn is from what you do, less from what you say. So one of the traditions you want to pass on is discipline and or honesty. You yourself have to be that, gentlemen. Again, no one's asking you to be perfect. I'm just asking you to be consistent. Let me read on before I finish. And I want y'all to know something. I want y'all to listen to me, right? I want you to understand that you, gentlemen, it's you that's the architect of the culture of your family. Whatever way of life your family is to adapt, it's going to be you that they're going to follow. And you may say, well, they don't really want to follow me. Give them something to follow. Everybody has it within their nature to follow. That's the nature of man. We want to follow. People want to follow. They do. And your children especially want to follow you 100%. Give them an example to follow. Like my son, when he was little, and I was doing a keto, and my son would always say, Dad, I want to get into keto like you. And I would go there monthly for about a year or two straight. I said, yeah? He said, yeah, I want to learn like you. And then I got into Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, right? And we took that on, and he liked it. He's like, oh, I want to do this with you, Dad. And it was me realizing that I was orchestrating and becoming an architect of my family by the actions I was doing. Very much less by the shit I was saying. As a father, you say shit all the time, whatever. But more so by the things I was doing that my son was like, I want to do that too. And it translated into his own life. And lastly, I want to say this, man. I want y'all to build your family with intention. I do. I want you to actually work on being and creating the family that you see yourself having and being intentionally. Meaning, set one principle, one value, one rule of law that is your rule of law. Let's say I hold myself to my word. Let's start small. Hold yourself to your word. If you're going to do something, if you say you're going to do something, then the tradition needs to be that whenever you say you're going to do something, you're going to do it and stick with it. And that needs to be the rule of law. That needs to be the tradition. That needs to be the value that everybody in your family that you're creating start to hold on to. As a leader, and this is the hard part about manhood, as a leader, oftentimes it becomes difficult because everything falls on your shoulders. And that's scary for a lot of men. And I'm not saying it's going to be easy. I'm not saying that at all. But what I am saying is start small. Right? Again, right? Build your family with intention. Guess what? We get up in the morning. If you're somebody who is you read the Bible, you want that to be something you want to teach your children, but you don't want to like be Bible thumping. Make it into a lesson plan. Make it into something they can actually learn and grow from, right? Actually, so let's say the story of David and Goliath, right? You know, the bully and the small kid, right? Apply that biblical lesson in the same sense you would the bully, and don't like read from the book, memorize it. Oh, well, son, it's like, you know, the story of David and Goliath, you know, and the X, Y, and Z, and then tell the story, and then tell a portion of the story. Don't go all biblical. Tell a portion of the story, and then convert it back to your son. So, just like you, son, you are stronger than you think. You're going to deal with this X, Y, however you explain it. But understand that start small, but be intentional. And lastly, the very last thing, I want you to start with one tradition, one rule of law at a time, one tradition, one value at a time. You don't need a whole slew of them, right? Some of us struggle with just one. Have just one, i.e., keeping your word. If you're going to do a thing, you say you're going to do a thing, do that thing. A man ain't shit without his word. And when you learn to build traditions, especially as somebody who holds his word, then you become a man that people can rely on, your family rely on, and they know for a fact that that man spoke a word, his word is factual, and it's dependable. I'm out, tribe. Listen, man, if you want the first module to my program, again, it's in the description box. And it's 100% free. All I require is your name and your email address, and you can download it. You want the entire program, that's $97. That is also in the description. I want you to be able to say, hey, I want the whole program, or I don't. Another thing, I teach for my program. So if you don't want to buy it, you just want the free download, get the free download, and I normally teach for my program anyway. If you made it this far in the video, man, please like and subscribe as I try to do a video 3 times a week. And I think I'm out, tribe. Peace.